Welcome back. We are in part 2 of our easy T-bottom tote bag in Browzwear. My name is Reyes Witt and I am a digital designer with 25 years of experience working in the fashion industry. I'm a professor of instruction at Columbia College Chicago, where I teach Browzwear and digital pattern making. Let's get started. Now that our patterns are made, our next step is to assign materials and to work on the physics of our materials. This tote bag is a leather tote bag, and so we are going to need to up the physics of our material so that it has the draping properties of a real leather tote. Here are the draping properties that I will be using for my tote. You can screenshot or write down the numbers and import them into this exercise. All right, starting in our 2D window, I am going to assign some material. I went into special materials and I downloaded the brown leather. If you can't see the text, you can always just hover over and the text will appear. So I chose the brown leather. I'm also going to choose some seams and trims, and I want to incorporate a rivet on the front of my bag for extra strength. So I'll just add that there, and I'll head back into materials, and I am going to clone this fabric that I've already changed the physics on. As you can see, my physics are representing the bend of 1,000, the stretch of 350. All of these numbers have been changed. I've used this before. I am going to clone my leather. For my brown leather, I'm going to be using that on my handles. One of the things that was really important for me was to ensure that the back of my leather was white. And the reason is it gets confusing when you're stitching in the 3D window. So I changed the color and then I hit recolor here. The next color I would like to use is going to be a pink color. So over here, I'm in my cloned fabric. I am going to select from my swatch library that I've already predetermined this pink color. And instead of overlay, I'm going to hit recolor, and it's going to turn my leather to be a pink tone. And then the last color that I would like to use is going to be white for my pocket. So I cloned my pink, and then I am going to select the material, come in here, select my white swatch, make sure that it says recolor. So I now have the 3 materials that I want. I have my brown leather for my straps, my pink leather for my body, and my white leather for my pocket. I also have my rivets that are going to go on the strap right where they connect to the bag for extra strength. And I created a single needle, so you just add new single needle stitch. My stitch has an offset of 0.125 inches, a line count of 1, and I'm all set. All right, time to start arranging my patterns. I'm going to start with the main body. It's going right into the torso block. Make sure it's in that box. Perfect. I'm actually going to hit tab and get me back into my 3D window because I would like to see my garment as it's being prepared. Perfect. This is the front. Make sure you hit prepare if you don't see your garment. I'm going to add my strap. What's important here is that I want to make sure that my strap is on a different layer. So I'm going to add a new cluster. And I'm just going to bring my strap down. That's independent now. And it's sitting on top. And then I'm going to add my pocket. And that pocket is going to go right on top of the front. Push that back a little bit. All right, perfect. Now I can do the back piece. It's going right into the torso. I'm going to drag it up just a little bit so it's nice and even with the front. The last thing I'm going to do is bring in this final strap. I'm going to bring it into its own layer and ensure that it is on and above the current layer, which it is. Perfect. So I know that the back is at 0 and my strap is at 1. If I look at the front, my main body is at 3, my pocket is at 4, and my strap is at 4, which is fine. I actually could bring it up to 5, just have it make sure that it sits right on top of the pocket. I'm actually going to add a new cluster just to make sure that my pocket is in its own space. Perfect. All right, I'm very happy with the way that this is arranged. Adding materials right now is a good idea. So I'm going to add my materials. I know that my straps are going to be brown. I'm going to assign the brown leather to my straps. And it's nice to see that the back side of them is white so you know which side you're dealing with. The next thing I want to do is assign the shell, my pink color. Perfect. And I'm going to assign the front this white leather. To stitch, I'm going to stitch in both the 2D window and the 3D window. First thing I want to do is stitch my sides together. I'm going to stitch the bottom together. If my patterns were folded together, I know that this would be stitched to here and this side would be stitched to here. And we can check and make sure that they're correct by just looking underneath, and I can see that I'm okay. Now I need to stitch my gussets together, like I'm stitching them flat together in a sewing machine. All right, I'm going to zoom in and stitch my pocket. I'm going to start with the bottom of the pocket and go straight down to where it's marked on my pattern. The next thing I want to do is stitch it to the side and stitch it to the side. I'm all set. Now I want to stitch my straps on. This can get a little complicated. What I want to do here is just give myself some room. I know that this bottom of my strap is going to go straight down here. I also know that I have it marked that the sides of my straps are going to go straight down right on to the front of my pattern, and I'm all set there. The bottom, which is right here, will go straight down to here. This side will come over on this area, and this one will come to here. One of the things I like to do is in the 2D window, I like to rotate this pattern piece just to ensure that my stitching is okay. And it looks okay right now. I'm going to stitch my bottom first, stitch the sides, move up to the top, get the top in. It may take you a couple times to get this right. That's okay. One thing I always think about with Browzwear is to give yourself some grace. It's not always easy right at the beginning, and sometimes it just takes a couple times to get it right. All right, so we have our bag. I am curious how this is going to simulate. I'm just going to grab this bottom piece and make sure it's right underneath that bottom edge of the bag. Okay, moment of truth. Excellent. It looks really good. Okay, so now that we have our tote, one of the things that I can do is with the styling tool, I can just come in and do some pinching to get the bag where I want it. But with a T-bottom tote, it's kind of loose and bulgy at the edge. So what I like to do is draw a line straight up the sides of my gussets and stitch them together. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to add our top stitching, and then I'll show you how to style. We marked earlier our points, and we have a nice line here. With the pen tool, I can create, I'm going to snap to point and snap to edge. I can create a line going straight down here. And then what I want to do is I want to stitch this area of the front 1/8 of an inch away to part of its side. So I'm going to clone this line by offset by 1/8 of an inch. Going in the X field, hit apply, and it's right there. I've added my line onto both sides. So go ahead and add your lines to the front and to the back. I have my lines here, and then you'll stitch your lines together. And this is going to give us a nice crisp line. Here we are. You can see that we now have these lines here. We're going to hit update 3D, and we've got a very defined gusset now off of our T-bottom tote. Perfect. This is looking really great. I really like the way that these edges are nice and crisp now that they're stitched together. So the last thing I want to do is do some detailing. I'm going to come in with my single needle stitch, and I am going to assign it to edges and just give my bag a little bit of some detailing that's going to make it pop. And I'm going to go all the way around the bag and assign the stitching where I need it, ensuring that I'm on the strap and not the internal lines. You can also do it in the 3D window, and since I have corner points, I need to continue up my strap to ensure that all the sides of my points are getting that stitch, and they are. I only need it on the top and bottom of my pocket. I've got it on the front of my tote. I'm going to add it to the side seams so that we'll get a stitch on both edges. Let's give it a look. It's looking pretty good. I like where the stitches are. We can see if we zoom in that we have this nice stitching here. And I think for the bag, I want to give it a little bit more of a darker stitch. So I'm going to clone the stitch, and I'm going to change the color to a brown, and I am going to update these stitches just so we can see them better. And it's always nice to play when you're working on a bag. It just gives you more of an opportunity to really have your garment stand out. I'm going all the way around. I'm going to hit both of those stitches that are on here. Okay, so I have updated my stitching. I have added a nice stitch to the sides where I have my stitched seam. My side seam has also a double stitch, and I've added this nice detailing going all the way around. I like the slouchiness of this bag. I think it looks really good. I think the physics of this bag are fantastic. The last thing I want to do is I want to update the back side of this strap. I do not want it any longer to be white. We don't need it to be white, so we'll just change it back to brown. It will look a lot cleaner. And I can hide my avatar so I can see how the bag looks. The last thing I want to do is add these really sweet rivets to the front of my bag. I'm going to right at the bottom and right at the top of my pocket. I can copy and I can paste them over to the other side. I want it right on the pocket and I want it centered, and it's centering it for me, and it is perfect. And there you have it. We have our T-bottom tote, 4-inch gusset, nice and clean, nice top stitching and rivets going all the way around. Give yourself some patience, have some fun, create your own tote with your own measurements, play around with the colors of the leather and the material. Join me again for another video. Don't forget to hit subscribe and like. Thanks so much. Have a great day.